They called me into the conference room on a Tuesday morning. No warning, no explanation. Just a calendar invite with my name and HR discussion in the subject line. I'd worked at Meridian Tech for 11 years. Started as a junior analyst, worked my way up to senior director. Never missed a deadline, never caused drama. I walked in carrying my coffee, thinking it was about the quarterly review. Sharon from HR sat at the head of the table. My manager, David, wouldn't meet my eyes. A man I didn't recognize sat beside them with a folder. James, please sit down, Sharon said. Her voice was too calm, too practiced. I Saturday. The stranger slid a paper across the table. We're terminating your employment effective immediately, Sharon said. This is your severance package. I stared at the words. What? Your position is being eliminated, she continued. You have 30 minutes to collect your belongings. My hands went cold. Why? I asked. David shifted in his seat. The company is restructuring, Sharon said. Your role no longer aligns with our strategic direction. That made no sense. I'd just led 3 successful product launches. My team exceeded every metric. What strategic direction? I pressed. I'm not at liberty to discuss specifics, Sharon replied. The stranger spoke for the first time. Sign the agreement, and you'll receive 6 months severance. Refuse, and you leave with nothing. I looked at David. You knew about this. He finally met my eyes. It's business, nothing personal. Something in his expression felt wrong. Too practiced, like he'd rehearsed that line. I picked up the paper. The severance clause mentioned a non-disparagement agreement and confidentiality terms. I need time to review this, I said. You have until end of day, the stranger replied. Security will escort you out. They walked me to my desk like I was a criminal. People stared. Whispered. I grabbed my personal items, a photo of my daughter, my coffee mug, a plant I'd kept alive for 6 years. 11 years reduced to a cardboard box. My assistant, Maya, caught me at the elevator. What happened? She whispered. I don't know, I said honestly. She glanced around. This doesn't feel right. The elevator doors opened. Security waited inside. As I stepped in, I saw David watching from across the floor. He looked away quickly. At home, I read the severance agreement 3 times. The non-disparagement clause was aggressive. I couldn't speak negatively about the company, its employees, or my termination. Ever. The confidentiality section was worse. I couldn't discuss the circumstances of my departure with anyone. Not former colleagues, not future employers. That felt excessive for a simple restructuring. I called my lawyer that afternoon. Don't sign anything yet, she said immediately. This language is unusual. Unusual how? I asked. Companies use these clauses when they're protecting something, she explained. Not when they're just cutting positions. She paused. Did they give you a reason? Restructuring, I said. Strategic realignment. Those are words, not reasons, she replied. Let me review this properly. Don't communicate with them until we talk again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the meeting. David's avoidance. Sharon's rehearsed responses. The stranger who never introduced himself. At 2 a.m, I opened my laptop. I'd kept backup copies of my work files on a personal drive. Company policy allowed it for remote work emergencies. I started reviewing my recent projects. Everything looked normal. Strong performance reviews, successful launches, positive client feedback. Then I found something strange. 2 weeks ago, I'd received an email from the CFO's office requesting detailed financial projections for a new product line. I'd sent them immediately. But when I checked my sent folder now, that email was gone. Not in trash, not in archives. Deleted. I searched my backup drive. The original request was there, but my response had been removed from the company server. Someone had gone into my account and erased it. I sat back, pulse racing. That required administrative access. IT would have records of who accessed my account. I grabbed my phone, then stopped. If someone was covering tracks, calling IT would alert them. I needed to be smarter than that. I spent the next hour documenting everything I could remember. Dates, times, names. Every unusual request from the past 6 months. Every project that seemed to bypass normal protocols. The pattern emerged slowly. 3 months ago, David had asked me to revise a budget proposal. Nothing unusual, except he'd insisted I not copy finance. Let's keep this streamlined, he'd said. I'd thought nothing of it then. 6 weeks later, another request. Adjust timeline projections for a client presentation, but send the files directly to him, not through normal channels. The client wants discretion, he'd explained. Last month, he'd asked me to prepare a competitive analysis using proprietary data from a previous employer. I'd refused. That could be legally problematic, I'd said. He'd backed off immediately, laughed it off as a misunderstanding. Now, looking at the timeline, I saw what I'd missed. Every request had pushed ethical boundaries. Every one had created documentation that could be used against the company. Or against me. My lawyer called back in the morning. This severance agreement is designed to silence you, she said. The question is why? I told her about the deleted emails, the unusual requests. She was quiet for a moment. Do you have copies? Yes. Don't touch them yet, she warned. If they're building a case against you, accessing those files could be seen as theft. They're my work product, I said. On their servers, with their resources, she replied. Legally, it gets complicated. She paused. Here's what I think is happening. Someone made mistakes, probably financial or ethical violations. They need a scapegoat. You refused to participate, so now you're a liability. They're framing me. Not yet, she said. But they're creating distance. If problems emerge later, they'll say you were responsible and they terminated you when they discovered it. My hands tightened on the phone. What do I do? Document everything, she said. Every conversation, every request, every unusual directive. But don't sign that agreement. I need the severance, I said. I have bills, a daughter in college. I understand, she replied. But signing that agreement means you can't defend yourself later. If they're setting you up, you'll have no recourse. I understood. I'd been scared too, once. Not anymore. That night, I started building my case. I created a timeline. Every questionable request, every deleted email, every conversation that felt off. I cross-referenced it with company announcements, financial reports, anything public. A pattern emerged. 6 months ago, Meridian had announced a major client win. Revenue projections doubled. Stock price jumped. But I'd worked on that client account. The projections David had presented to the board were inflated. I'd told him the numbers didn't match our capacity. Let me worry about that, he'd said. 3 months later, the client reduced their contract. Quietly, with no public announcement. The revenue gap had to be hidden somewhere. I pulled up the financial documents I'd prepared at the CFO's request. The ones that had been deleted. I'd projected realistic numbers based on actual capacity. Numbers that contradicted David's promises to the board. If those projections had gone to the CFO, someone would have noticed the discrepancy. Questions would have been asked. David would have been exposed. Unless I disappeared first. Unless I was positioned as the problem. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. This is Marcus Webb, the voice said. I'm an investigator with the Securities and Exchange Commission. My blood went cold. I'm calling about Meridian Tech, he continued. We're looking into financial irregularities. Your name has come up. I was just fired, I said carefully. I know, he replied. That's why I'm calling. We'd like to talk to you. Voluntarily, off the record initially. I need to speak with my lawyer first. Of course, he said. But understand, if you're involved in securities fraud, cooperation now will matter later. He hung up before I could respond. I called my lawyer immediately. Don't talk to them without me present, she said. But this changes things. If there's a federal investigation, that severance agreement is worthless. What do you mean? I asked. Non-disparagement clauses can't prevent you from cooperating with law enforcement, she explained. If they're being investigated, you're protected. She paused. Here's what I think happened. The SEC started asking questions. Meridian's leadership panicked. They need someone to blame, and you're convenient. You had access, you prepared reports, and now you're gone. Perfect scapegoat. But I didn't do anything wrong, I said. I know, she replied. That's why we're going to prove it. The next morning, I received an email from Meridian's legal counsel. We've become aware of potential misconduct during your employment. We're conducting an internal investigation. You are required to preserve all documents and communications. The email was carefully worded. It didn't accuse me directly, but the implication was clear. I forwarded it to my lawyer. They're scared, she said when she called back. That email is defensive posturing. What do I do? We meet with the SEC, she said. We tell them everything. But first, we organize your evidence. We spent 2 days preparing. Every email, every document, every conversation I could remember. My lawyer built a timeline that showed David's requests, my refusals, and the subsequent deletion of files. This is solid, she said. You're not the perpetrator. You're the witness they silenced. The SEC meeting was scheduled for Thursday. On Wednesday night, David called me. I almost didn't answer. We need to talk, he said. His voice sounded strained. I don't think that's appropriate, I replied. Please, he said. Off the record. Just listen. Against my lawyer's advice, I met him at a park. Neutral ground. Public place. He looked terrible. Hadn't slept, hadn't shaved. They're going to blame me for everything, he said immediately. Who is? I asked. Thompson. The CFO. He ran his hands through his hair. He told me to inflate the projections. Said the board needed confidence that would make up the numbers later. I stayed quiet. When the client reduced the contract, he panicked, David continued. He needed the discrepancy buried. That's why he wanted your real projections deleted. And I got fired to keep me quiet, I finished. He nodded miserably. I didn't know they'd do that. I thought they'd just reassign you. You let them, I said. You sat in that meeting and said nothing. He couldn't meet my eyes. I have a family. A mortgage. I couldn't. You made a choice, I interrupted. Now you want me to protect you. I want to tell the truth, he said. But I need immunity. If I cooperate, I lose everything. I stood up. You already lost it. You just don't know it yet. I told my lawyer about the conversation. He's looking for a deal, she said. Let him make one. Your testimony is stronger because you refused to participate. The SEC interview lasted 4 hours. I walked them through everything. The inflated projections, David's requests, the deleted emails, my termination. Marcus Webb, the investigator, took notes without expression. Why didn't you report this earlier? He asked. I didn't realize what I was seeing, I said honestly. David was my manager. I thought some requests were just poor judgment, not fraud. But you refused to participate, Webb said. Yes. Why? I thought about that. Because I've worked too hard to compromise my integrity for someone else's shortcuts. Webb nodded slowly. We'll need your documentation. All of it. My lawyer slid a folder across the table. Already prepared. 2 weeks later, news broke. Meridian Tech was under federal investigation for securities fraud. The stock price dropped 30% in 1 day. The CFO resigned. David was placed on administrative leave. I watched the news from my living room, feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication. Just tired. My lawyer called. The company wants to settle. Settle what? I asked. Your termination. They're offering full severance, restoration of benefits, a neutral reference, and a confidential settlement payment. How much? Enough that you won't have to work for 2 years if you don't want to. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. No, she repeated. I want my job back, I said. There was a pause. That's unusual. I'm not interested in money, I said. I'm interested in my career, my reputation. I want reinstatement with back pay and a public acknowledgement that my termination was wrongful. My lawyer was quiet. They won't like that. I don't care what they like, I replied. They tried to destroy me to cover their mistakes. Money doesn't fix that. She called back 3 days later. They agreed. Full reinstatement, back pay, and a statement that your termination was unrelated to performance or misconduct. I returned to Meridian on a Monday morning. The office was different. Quieter. People watched me walk to my desk with expressions I couldn't read. Maya was waiting. Welcome back, she said, smiling. My old desk had been cleared out. I set down my box and started unpacking. The same photo of my daughter. The same coffee mug. The plant had died. The new CFO called me in that afternoon. I want to be clear, she said. We're rebuilding this company's integrity. What happened to you was wrong. Thank you, I said. I've reviewed your work, she continued. You were right about the projections. If we'd listened to you, we wouldn't be in this mess. She slid a folder across the table. This is a promotion. Senior Vice President. Financial Planning. You'll report directly to me. I opened the folder. The salary was significant. The responsibility was larger. Why me? I asked. Because you can't be bought, she said simply. And right now, that's exactly what we need. I thought about everything I'd lost. The stress, the uncertainty, the fear. I thought about my daughter asking if I was okay, night after night. I thought about David sitting in that park, broken. I'll take it, I said. On one condition. She raised an eyebrow. What condition? Full transparency. No deleted emails, no hidden requests, no ethical shortcuts. If someone asks me to do something questionable, I report it immediately. Agreed, she said without hesitation. Anything else? Yes, I said. I want protection for anyone who reports concerns. No retaliation, no career consequences. She extended her hand. Done. We shook. Her grip was firm. That night, I took my daughter to dinner. She'd been anxious through everything, trying to hide it but failing. I'm proud of you, she said over dessert. For what? For not giving up, she replied. For fighting back. I smiled. I didn't fight back. I just refused to disappear. She thought about that. That's the same thing, isn't it? Maybe it was. The federal investigation concluded 6 months later. The former CFO pleaded guilty to securities fraud. David cooperated and received probation. 3 other executives were charged. I testified at trial. Walked through the same timeline, the same evidence. The defense attorney tried to shake me. Isn't it true you benefited from this situation? He asked. You received a promotion. I received a promotion because I told the truth, I replied. Not because I participated in fraud. The jury convicted on all counts. Afterward, Marcus Webb found me in the hallway. Thank you, he said. Your cooperation made this case. I was just protecting myself, I said. He shook his head. You were protecting everyone who works honestly. That matters more than you know. Meridian's stock eventually recovered. The new leadership team focused on transparency and ethical practices. My team grew to 15 people. We rebuilt the financial planning department from the ground up. One afternoon, I received an email from a stranger. I read about your case in the news, it said. I'm facing something similar at my company. They're pressuring me to falsify reports. I don't know what to do. I stared at the email for a long time. Then I called my lawyer. Can I respond to this? I asked. The non-disparagement agreement is void, she said. You can say whatever you want. I wrote back. Document everything. Find a lawyer you trust. Don't sign anything under pressure. And remember, your integrity is worth more than any severance package. They responded within an hour. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Over the next year, I received dozens of similar emails. people facing retaliation, pressure, ethical dilemmas. I responded to each one. Sometimes with advice, sometimes just with encouragement. My lawyer suggested I start a consulting practice. Help people navigate these situations before they explode, she said. I thought about it. Nights and weekends at first, then something more. I called it Integrity Advisory. The tagline was simple: stand your ground. We'll help you. The first client was a mid-level manager being pressured to backdate contracts. We documented everything, negotiated her exit, and helped her file a whistleblower complaint. The company settled before it reached court. The second client was facing retaliation for reporting harassment. We built an airtight case. Her employer reinstated her with a public apology. Word spread quietly. People who needed help found us. Not through advertising, through referrals. Through whispered recommendations in break rooms and parking lots. Talk to her, they'd say. She knows what it's like. I did know. I knew the fear, the uncertainty, the pressure to stay quiet. I also knew something else. Silence protects the wrong people. 2 years after my termination, I spoke at a corporate governance conference. The audience was full of executives, compliance officers, people who built systems. Culture isn't what you say in mission statements, I told them. It's what you tolerate when no one's watching. I told my story. Not for sympathy, but as a warning. Someone in your organization right now is facing an ethical choice. What happens next depends on whether they believe truth is rewarded or punished. After the talk, a woman approached me. I'm a board member at a public company, she said. We just discovered financial irregularities. The CEO wants to handle it quietly. She handed me her card. Would you consult? I looked at the card. Fortune 500 company. Billions in revenue. What do you want from me? I asked. The truth, she said. However uncomfortable it is. I spent 3 months reviewing their financials. Found the same patterns I'd seen at Meridian. Inflated projections, hidden discrepancies, pressure on employees to stay quiet. I presented my findings to the board. You have 2 choices, I said. Disclose this now and control the narrative, or wait for someone else to expose it. They chose disclosure. The stock dropped, the CEO resigned, but the company survived. Stronger, actually. Investors rewarded the transparency. I received a call from the SEC. Not Marcus Webb this time, but his supervisor. We'd like to hire you as a consultant, she said. Help us identify red flags in corporate culture. I thought about the conference room where I was fired. The fear I'd felt. The certainty that my career was over. I'll do it, I said. But only if you protect the people who report. Always, she replied. My daughter graduated college last spring. She's working in corporate compliance now. You inspired me, she said at her graduation dinner. I laughed. I just refused to be quiet. Exactly, she said. That's the inspiration. Last month, I received an email from David. I know I don't deserve a response, it said. But I want you to know I'm sorry. You were right to refuse. I should have done the same. I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote back. I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Live with them honestly. He never replied. I didn't expect him to. Sometimes I think about that Tuesday morning. The conference room, the stranger with the folder, the 30 minutes to pack my life into a box. I think about how close I came to signing that agreement. To disappearing quietly. I didn't disappear. I documented. I prepared. I refused to let someone else's fraud become my silence. And when the truth came out, I was ready. That's the lesson I carry now. Power doesn't come from volume or position. It comes from knowing who you are when pressure arrives. And choosing integrity even when it costs everything.